Well, hello and good morning to our listeners from around the world. I want to welcome you to another great edition of This Morning with Soulivity, broadcasting live from our studio in Washington, D.C., and on KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. My name is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I am so glad you're here. We're joined today again by my very special friend and wonderful co host, Teresa Greco. Good morning, Teresa.
Good morning, everyone.
How has your weekend been?
Well, I spent it doing some work. I have
Hmm.
studies that I'm doing. I'm working towards my PhD.
Oh wow, great.
Yeah, so I got lots of studying associated with that to do. So,
Well, so we're going to be calling you Dr. Greco in just a
yes.
second.
Yeah. Oh, it would be nice if it was in just a second.
But you'll make your husband call you your Grace.
Oh,
Oh man, and when he does, tape record that for me.
okay.
Um, yeah, things over here. I mean, I was just telling you about. I mean, I love getting outside and doing like, working in our yards and planting things and taking care of things and something about being in nature for me that's just kind
Mhm.
of like really healthy.
Yeah.
It's also great. It's a great workout if you're like doing like different things. So I
Mhm.
incorporate that as part of my overall fitness. And it was like the tale of two stories this weekend, weather-wise. It was like completely beautiful on Saturday. Not too hot, not too
Mhm.
cold, sunny, a little puffy white clouds in the sky. And then Sunday was more of a overcast, rainy day. And it's like you gotta like get through the whole like, well, they're all beautiful.
Yeah.
The weather's always beautiful and purposeful.
Yes.
But it was a great weekend. It was a great weekend. We've got a great show today. Um, uh, I've been looking forward to discussing this with you, Teresa. I know that as part of being a happiness coach for people, um, part of being happy is learning how to grow through challenges. And so I knew this was going to tickle your fancy today. So,
Yeah, I love it. Love it.
why don't we get to it? Our hot topic today was inspired by a viral video that was featured from the National Basketball Association here in the United States. It was during the first round of playoffs that started a couple of weeks ago. And this video was after a shocking first round playoff loss of the Miami Bucks at the hands of the Miami Heat. And Bucks superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo was asked after that game, the last game when they basically exited the playoffs, whether Milwaukee's season was a failure. Interesting enough, this viral video went actually viral because of Giannis's answer. Let's take a listen.
The exact same question, but I'm curious for you. Do you view this season as a failure?
Oh my God. Uh, okay, because I'm not that up. You asked me the same question last year, Eric. Okay. Do you get the promotion every year on your job? No, right? So every year you work is a failure. Yes or no? No. Every year you work towards something, towards a goal, right? Which is to get a promotion, to be able to take care of your family, to be able, I don't know, provide the house for them or take care of your parents. You work towards a goal. It's not a failure. It's steps to success, And if you've never, I don't want to make it personal. So there's always steps to it, you know. Um, Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 championship. The other 9 years was a failure. That's what you're telling me. No, I'm asking you a question. Yes or no? Okay, exactly. So why you asking me that question? It's a wrong question. There's no failure in sports. You know, there's good days, bad days. Some days you are able to be successful. Some days you're not. Some days it's your turn. Some days it's not your turn. And that's what sport is about. You don't always win. Some other people's gonna win. And this year somebody else is gonna win. Simple as that. We're gonna come back next year, try to be better, try to build good habits, try to play better, not have a 10-day stretch with playing bad basketball, you know, and hopefully we can win a championship. So 50 years from 1971 to 2021 that we didn't win a championship, it was 50 years of failures? No, it was not. It was steps to it, you know, and we were able to win one. Hopefully we can win another one. You know, sorry that I didn't want to make it personal, because you asked me the same question last year, and last year I was in the right mind space to answer the question back, but I remember it.
So today we're going to be talking about failure and how failure can actually turn into steps to ultimate success. And before we really get into it, before I asked Teresa for her reaction, I just want to remind our listeners that, listen, this is an interactive conversation. We would love for you to comment, ask questions, give us your thoughts. Just post right directly to our live feeds on Facebook and YouTube, and we will include you. So, Teresa, what was when you saw that? What was your first reaction?
My first one was he showed him.
And he was struggling to not make it personal.
Yeah. But I was like, I felt like he was telling him off. Like that was almost the tone without it being, so much like that. But I could see that he was annoyed.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that was my first reaction, especially with the fact that this same reporter had asked him the same question the year before. I think that was something that was part of it. I also think that it showed that Giannis had grown as a person over the last year, from the time at which that was something I thought that was really unique, where he got asked the same question the year before, basically around the same time. And Giannis had a different response. I don't know what his response was last year, but it was very apparent that he had a different approach this year. And that he said it. He had to get into a different headspace. And so I thought that was very interesting too. And that, I know my folks would tell me that, there's times like this when people ask you a difficult question or something that like pisses you off, that maybe this is a time to make this a teachable moment. And that what most players in all sports go through. And I think that again, I think that we as human beings a lot of times don't equate our life to how professional and even college level sports teams live their lives and what they go through on a constant basis, because it's like, oh, well, that's a sport. That's not really like a profession. And it's like, no, for these guys, it is. I mean, they're making a lot of money, and that their success when they're younger is a big part of how it sets them up for living their life after when they get too old and they can't play at the same level at which they've played before.
I think professional sports shows lots of great examples.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
We need to take away, some of the behaviors that they exhibit, and how can we incorporate that into everyday life? Like I've been watching hockey, and at the end of a series, when it's gone to like 7 games, let's say, and at the end, when the teams have to go into the line and congratulate each other, it's like both sides are so happy for each other. And I was like,
Right.
what the
Right.
heck? Like, how is it that you went to game 7 and yet the losing team is like hugging and they're all smiling?
Right.
I'm like, you don't even see that in kids' sports these days. You don't see it in the parents, you don't see it in the kids. You see the losing team very upset. Where I'm like, we need to take a lesson out of this playbook to see how, what it means to be sportsmanlike, even when you lose,
Right.
how it means,
Right.
how we should behave with each other.
Right. And again, I want people to understand that the words that really resonated with me and we just posted the video just in case you want to bookmark that for yourself, and go back and listen to it. When he said there is no failure in sports, right? I looked at that as there is no quote unquote failure in life. Um, that depending upon how you approach failure, or as I was taught, to make failure growth opportunities, that you can always find success in those failures, so that you can operate differently, you can choose differently, you can create what I was taught, creating a new normal for yourself. Um, it's funny, before we go to break, Teresa, you know me, I love history.
Mhm.
And so I was looking at, like, I found 3 notable success stories that began with failure. Henry Ford went bankrupt before starting the Ford Motor Company. Do you know
No,
that?
I might have been. When you're talking about him, I might have, but
Yeah, Thomas Edison and his colleagues tested thousands of materials before creating the carbon filament light bulb. By the way, the filament that's in there was created by an African American. That's
wow.
one thing that people don't talk about. That there would be no light bulbs without that invention.
Mhm,
This is one that I think a lot of people may know. J.K. Rowling received 12 rejections from major publicists
mhm,
before the first Harry Potter book was published.
mhm.
So there's always, like, these
Wow.
steps that we go through, that if we seize the day and seize the opportunity that we exist within those failures, that we can actually create more success and not less. So let's take a quick break. We're going to take a little quick break. And when we get back, I want to ask you specifically, Teresa, about, what does failure mean to you? And what do we need to take away from that definition from you? So why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more with This Morning with Soulivity. We'll be right back. Hey there, this is Brian with Soulivity.com. I want to share some exciting news about our new Aspire Academy by Soulivity. Now, you probably want to know what the Aspire Academy by Soulivity is. Well, it exclusively connects you with people around the globe and who share the intense desire to improve themselves and create a better life for themselves today. There's classes, there's workshops, there's live events, and even more exclusively just for you. You see, I wanted you to have a safe space where you could grow, you can learn, and it would empower you in all aspects of your life, including your mind, your body, and your soul. So how do you get started? Well, it is so easy. First of all, the best part, joining Aspire Academy is absolutely free. Just click on the Join Now button, sign up, and begin your journey. As a special part of this invitation to you, there are some free courses that are available for you to try from our amazing roster of coaches and collaborators. It's our way of saying thank you for all of your support and being with us along our journey of expansion. I hope you enjoyed the Aspire Academy by Soulivity today. Start the process. Learn more about your passion, your purpose, and how to live a higher quality life. And welcome back to This Morning with Soulivity. We still have Teresa Greco with us, and we are talking about failure, steps to ultimate success, which may seem like an oxymoron, but it's really not. it's actually things that we're going to be talking about, how to turn failure into growth opportunities and turning that into success. So, Teresa, failure, what does that mean for you? Or what have you learned? What does that mean for you?
So this is why this particular topic was just so important for me today, because I have always looked at failure as the classic definition. And it is defined as a lack of success or the inability to meet an expectation. It is setting a goal but not achieving it. So that has been up to today. So Brian, like, I have to really thank you for talking about this today, because there are many, there could be many people that are out there that view success the same way that I have viewed it, according to that definition.
Right.
But in the video, when he says it's steps to success, I was like, what the heck?
What you talking about, Willis?
Exactly like that moment. I love that line too from the show. Oh my God. That was so great. It was exactly like that. What are you talking about? And so when he went through all of those examples, I thought, he's absolutely right. And so because I have been stuck my whole life with that understanding, with that definition of what failure is, it's either successful, you've done it, or you failed.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Absolutely.
And because of that definition, it has absolutely inhibited me from stepping out of my comfort zone in particular things, that it can be an inhibitor to people wanting to stretch and grow, because of this idea that if it's not safe to do that, and that we could fail.
Right.
And that failure for me, which we could, I'm going to pause there for a moment, but failure for me now is tied to some other things.
Well, I think even in my own experience, even though I've been taught things that have seeped into my consciousness intellectually, there still is a socialization of failure that is very, very prominent, even in my own life, and I think in most people's lives, which mirrors what you just said, right? Especially in more Western societies, where failure is tied to class and status, and that kind of thing, and that we talk about like happiness, for instance, right? We talk about happiness in the instance of this holistic kind of um uh definition, but at the same time, typically things start with, oh well, if you're a success and that kind of thing, then you're regarded as being better than other people, right? Again, class, status, and that kind of thing. And then, but people don't focus on, in my opinion, um, focus on the journey and the continued journey even after the successes that have been made, right? So, like for instance, I mean, I just gave three, but there's things like both um, Tyler Perry and oh gosh, Tyler Perry and I think it was Steve Harvey. Basically, I mean, I know Tyler Perry was living out of his car, but Steve Harvey was close to that. And they don't talk about, people don't talk about or focus on all the things that those people had to do to learn how to move themselves forward every single day to a point at which they could start reaping what they had sold in terms of those growth opportunities,
Yeah.
like trusting spirit and that kind of thing.
Yes.
um
Yes.
I know, like, that whole thing about failure. I think failure for most people is such an emotional experience. That feeling of the appearance of not being good enough, right? The experience of you gave it all you had, and you still came up, quote unquote, short. That's an emotional thing. And so, I totally get that even in a more enlightened state, you still got to deal with those emotions, right? And so, in the next segment, just want to kind of talk to you, Teresa, too, about this emotional part of failure before we get into like making that turn, because I think, we hear Giannis talking about, there is no failure in sports, and it sounds good, and it even feels good, but that doesn't change the fact that you're going to still fail. You're going to fail in your life. I mean, it's a reality,
Mhm.
and that emotional state's going to pop up. And I wanted to talk to you specifically about this because you teach people how to move through emotional states, especially when it comes to people learning how to be happy, which I think that this is also a part of, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And so, um, why don't we take a break again, and we'll move into this thought of what does failure mean emotionally for people, and would love for our audience members who are out there to kind of post into our chats about what those feelings are for them, if you're led to do that. And we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of This Morning with Soulivity.
Hi there, Sheila Applegate here with some exciting news. I've joined the incredible Soulivity team as the host of the new Consciously Awesome live show, where I will be sharing insights to help you discover your full brilliance and claim the vibrant life you deserve. So tune in every Wednesday right here on Soulivity TV to join the fun, and remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame. Living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We're talking about something that I think that people don't talk enough about, and that is failure, and how we can turn failure into growth opportunities and turn that into steps for ultimate success. And so, Teresa, you deal with, I mean, you have clients, and you're a happiness coach where you're teaching people how to be, how to first define what that happiness is for themselves, and how to move from where they are currently into this new normal of happiness. And I truly believe that part of that is learning how to fail, quote unquote, up. And part of that is recognizing what failure means for you today at an emotional level. Do you agree with that?
I do.
Yeah.
That we encounter challenges and hardship and adversity and failure, these setbacks, maybe even on a daily basis to different degrees.
Yeah.
And it's how we look at it. I think first that I think one of those first steps that we can take is definitely acknowledging the emotion, right? That if we're getting triggered by something on a deeper level, it could mean that we have to really look at this. And for me, when you say that we're going to talk about it on an emotional level, I think that is what we have to do first, is really to look at, if you are being triggered emotionally, is to really maybe dive into that and to discover why. And so I had something come up 2 weeks ago that it could have been a big setback for me. And I've had to do a lot of work in the last 2 weeks to get me back to where I was prior to that. So we have these setbacks, but then I had to look, well, why did it set me back that far? What was it inside of me that I needed to look at? And so it turns out that so this is why today's, I'm going to call it a lesson because it's another lesson for me. Today's lesson, when we have the opportunity to redefine what failure is, so that I shared the common definition, the dictionary definition. But if we look at failure as something that is more contingent on the process,
right,
rather than the attainment of the goal. So when he said it's steps to success, it's steps like, when Michael Jordan only had 6 successful seasons out of 15 where, they actually won the championship and all of that, is like, well, what about all the other 9?
Right.
And so he brought up such good examples. And so when we can reframe and redefine failure to be where it is contingent on the process, and as you said just before the break, on the journey, then I think we can start to look at the situation and maybe not be so hard on ourselves. So I'd love to share, what the situation brought up in me, which maybe not everybody might be aware of why it might be so hard for us to face failure.
Yeah, please.
So I realized that the setback for me was very much tied to my self-worth, my self-esteem, my self-acceptance, that again, it's the self-worth and this not enough, that I don't have enough of whatever in order to make this happen. And I'm also not worthy of the success that I'm looking for. And sometimes not in my case, but in some cases, people self-sabotage. that they're
Mhm.
actually moving along, and then they're like, wait, there's something, it's deep. It's not on a cognitive level. There's something deep inside of us that says you're not worthy of that. Who are you to desire these goals? Who are you to want to achieve those things? And when you can acknowledge this deep inner fear and this deep inner not enough and not worthy, and I know it's tied to like my upbringing. We grew up, we did not have a lot of things. We had a small house with many people in it, one washroom for like 6 people in the morning, and
Right.
and so, like, humble beginnings. My
Mhm.
parents were immigrants, and they're the first generation here that started to make a life here. And
Mhm.
so a lot of my understandings about money and success is tied to like my understanding of what life means.
Right.
How
Right.
much you have to work, and a whole bunch of different things. But nevertheless, sometimes these setbacks, which I know for me, this setback that happened was an opportunity for me to really dig deep and to look at this unworthiness that is not true,
Mhm.
and this not enoughness also not true. But that stuff had to come to light so that I could let go, forgive, move past, clear, a whole bunch of work, Brian, that I'm doing
Yeah, I
to
bet.
really let go of this inside of me that's deep. It wasn't about the surface level stuff. It was more about this. So I invite people to really ask themselves that, why is failure hard for you? And is it because maybe you also have a deep inner voice inside of you that's saying the same thing, that you're not worthy of
Right.
the goals that you're trying to pursue, and
Right.
you're not enough. You don't have enough of whatever in order to gain that level of success.
Thank you for sharing that. In opening up to us around what the deeper, especially emotional, but I would say how your identity was tied to this aspect of failure and success, right?
Yes,
Um,
very much.
Um, and I think again, I think that that is true for all of us. I think that's one reason why we don't talk about failure. We talk about success, right? You see in the
Mhm.
news and and the celebrations of people's success, and but you never really hear about the journey of them getting to where they are today. And so, and again, it's this deep emotionally charged aspect of our lives where we really got to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, I totally identify with what you were saying. I mean, again, I had parents that started the idea of redefining what failure and success mean, because I think the flip side of this is there are people that are successful but they are miserable.
Mhm.
So they've mastered how to be successful in certain areas of their life that may even society may reward, right? Like, oh well, they've been able to master how to make money. They've mastered how to acquire things
Mm.
and that kind of thing, but they're still miserable because those things don't represent or don't provide the healing that is necessary for the things that are up underneath all of that. And gets to what you were talking about, Teresa, that you can be successful and still feel as though you're not enough.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the question is, what parts of your life do you really need to look at and holistically become a success regardless of the acquisition of things. So if all that was gone, would you still love yourself at a very, very deep level? Or are you tied, or is your self-worth tied to things that are outside of you, which is another part of this, right?
Yes, it is it is very tied to this.
Because I could ask our audience, you know, if you were to define failure in terms of just your life, what would it mean? And my guess is most people would talk about things that are outside of themselves immediately, because that's what we're conditioned to do. Especially in Western societies, no judgment, but just stating fact. In Western societies where, capitalism and competitiveness is part of the deal. And so if you fail, you are deemed less than in that economic system. If you succeed, you're deemed greater than. Oh, you're succeeding. Oh, well, that's because you've gained this status of wealth or this other things. So, yeah.
Redefining success too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all part of it. It's not just redefining failure. There are two sides of the same coin, in my opinion, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there's a study that was out that was done, and let's see if I can find the people who actually did this study. And it's from an article that I thought was really, really cool. I'll try to post it. And it's, why do some people succeed after failing while others continue to flounder? And let's see if I can find who did the study. It's out of the Center of Science and Innovation from the Kellogg School. And they asked these questions about, like, again, how do people kind of move through this more easily than others? What's the best model? And then they said that their model suggests that some people learn from their failed attempts more than others. And with those who learn more, incorporating more components of their failed attempts into their later attempts. So again, this is about and this is one thing that Yana said in that interview, or answering that question, and that is, you've got to build better habits, right? And I look at that as you're creating a new normal. And you just talked about it by starting this process of looking within. Teresa, when you listen to this interview, what did you specifically pick up on that helped you start the process of redefining what failure was in your own life?
And thank you for the question. I approach life like this also in general, that when we have these setbacks, that yes, it hurts. They hurt.
Yeah.
And then it hurts.
Yeah, it hurts and hurt. Yeah.
The hurt.
Absolutely.
The letdown of you not, whatever it was, let's say that you were preparing for a big presentation at work and you put all this effort into it and you go in and then, maybe you submit the presentation and your boss changes a whole bunch of aspects of it. And you're like, what the heck? Or, you apply for a job and you're encouraged by your colleagues and maybe your manager to go for it. And you think, yeah, this is in the bag. And you think you nailed the interview. And then you find out, no, they decided to go with an external candidate,
right,
because they think that that's going to serve the right company better. So, we put all of this, when we put all of ourselves, right? This is, I think, a key. When we put our heart and soul and we're putting 100% of ourselves into it,
Mhm.
And then we experience the setback. It hurts. It's one thing if you put 50% in. You're
Right.
like, well, whatever, because I really didn't try all that hard, right? Then
Mhm.
it's like, okay, whatever. You can kind of shrug it off. But like in this situation with him and with the video today, and how I try to pick myself up is that I will allow myself to kind of sit in the disappointment, because we need to do that instead of just putting it under the rug and like, oh, whatever, it didn't happen, it's okay, and just try to move on. I don't want to be a sucky baby about it, or a wimp, or whatever, however you want to label it. It's like, no, we should acknowledge the hurt.
Mm.
On a soul level, we came here
Right.
to experience
Right.
what we consider to be negative emotions. So we should sit in it. But what's important is we don't unpack our bags and stay there. So in that video, he's like, it's part of the process. Like, it's part of the journey. Like, this stuff's going to happen. And next year we're going to try to like not have 10 games in a row where
Right.
we lost. We're going to try to. So it's like looking at all of the different ways that you could slightly improve, and really looking at what factors were maybe involved that didn't make you as successful. But this is, I think, all part in, I'm not going to unpack my bags and stay in this emotion. That for me, it was about a day and a half. That when you do the work, Brian, you are
Yeah.
able to pick yourself up. That someone
Yeah.
said to me, Teresa, that happened to me, it might have
Mhm.
ruined like my whole life. Someone said to me, can you
Absolutely.
imagine that for me it ruined a day and a half?
Right.
And he said, Teresa, if I was told what was said to you, that it might have ruined my whole life.
Right.
And I was like, wow. So this is what's important, is that, these things are going to happen, but we want to try to then resort to it, which I think we're going to talk about in the next segment, is what are some of those steps that we can take to pick ourselves back up, right? There's that resilience
Yes.
component to this.
Right.
What are those steps that we can turn to so that we don't allow these setbacks to ruin our day, because sometimes they're small, our day, our week, a month, a year, maybe perhaps our entire life. So we don't.
Yeah, let's talk about that really quickly. So we know the first step is to allow yourself to feel what you feel, right? And I would say taking a step into journaling it, right? But making it real, understanding that you're going to feel this way when you fail, right? And that the goal is to take less time staying in that feeling state and kind of moving to the next thing, but allow to feel what you feel, document it in some type of way. And as part of that, feel grateful for those feelings, because no one ever moves out of anything unless things are uncomfortable to some degree, right? Even if it's from a small pick print to whatever, you move when you understand it's time to move, and sometimes that is through some level of pain.
Mhm.
Two, your journey, right? Understanding that as you're documenting this, that you understand that this is a journey, right? And that this is not a destination. Your failure is not the end all, and that oh, I failed. It is okay. Now I'm starting this process of evaluating why I failed. What could I do differently? And then you're documenting all that. And it's important to document it after you've processed your emotional state, so that you are clear, you are rational, you're not writing down things from that part of, especially your brain, because when you fail, it triggers a fight or flight response. And so you want to move through that so that you can get to a place at which you're clear, and now you're in your rational brain, and you're writing down these things, and you're writing down the things that you did that may have contributed to the failure, and then you're turning those into what are the steps what are the things that I need to do differently to move to not necessarily um reach get reach success the next time, because you may fail again and then there'll be another lesson there, but to keep you moving through and understanding that this is a journey, right? um um within this study they said that um um you just can't try again, you have to try better next time, right? So
Mm.
you're always improving yourself and always improving how you're approaching life, right? And again, even on the emotional side, that's another thing. So I got emotional. Um, I may get emotional again, but my goal is that I won't beat up on myself, or I honor myself in failing, right? The universe doesn't understand the word no. It only
Mhm.
understands positive. So avoid the whole don't, won't, do not, will not, those kind of things, and turn those into positive statements. One other thing too, and I mean, we could spend like hours upon hours upon hours on this. One last thing I'd say on this is, and things that I'm doing today, even in my own business, and that is, Thomas Edison said, people give up because they don't know how close they are to success. And one of the researchers said, well, what the paper contributes is now we know, because if we have data about how you fail, we will have a better idea of where you're headed. And so the idea is, again, that you're trying again better. You're doing this over and over. You understand that failure is part of the process, that emotions are going to be part of the process, and that if you know this is a journey, you know that at some point you will reach the level of success that you want. And it may not be in the same package at which you think it's going to be. That's another piece of this, because the journey isn't necessarily to to um get accomplish a certain thing. The journey is to be happy, joyful, feel loved, supported, and all that. That's the big difference between your professional life and your life. I think that's what I would say.
Oh my God, I loved all those points, Brian, and they're all of them. They're all hitting home. So thank
Yeah.
you for all of those.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. Any final thoughts from you about this?
Mhm, mhm. For me, my final thought is that if we can move through all of those steps that you just pointed out and really take away the lessons that the situation, life is always happening for you
Right.
and not to you.
Right.
So
Whew, yeah.
when we can look at it like that, when we can look at our failures like that, and say, this is happening for me. Okay, so it totally flips it.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, if this happened for me, what for my best interest? The universe is always has your back. It is always conspiring for your best interest. So
Absolutely.
if that is the case, how if this has happened for you, what lessons can you take away? And then secondly, how can you use this setback as a way to actually renew your commitment and renew motivation towards your goal? So you've learned the lessons, you've made some adjustments, you've healed inside you, which is what the work that I've been doing, healing that self-worth piece inside of me,
Right.
so that I can move even further into my greatness.
Right.
And then what I really loved about that last point is that when you said it's not just about your business success, but it's about life success.
Right.
And at the end, if you're going to look back at your life, how are you going to think your life was a success? Was
Right.
it successful because you've left $1 million in the bank, or was it success because your life impacted people's lives
Right.
in, like, where you actually change them?
Yeah.
Your presence changed them, your words changed them, your love changed them, that your essence left an impact.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's it. That's it. I think my final thoughts for today again reflect around the man who taught me how to fail gracefully and fail upward is my father, and he would always talk about the fact that you got to keep moving forward because um, um, you never know that quote unquote pot of gold isn't behind the next turn.
Mm.
And that he would always say, there's a quote that his father told him and then he told me and my brother, and that is, um, make mountains stepping stones,
Mm.
seize victory from defeat. And what he meant was, in every failure or every challenge, there's a lesson to be learned. And that when you turn whatever that challenge, or in this case, failure is, into a powerful tool to guide you and move you through whatever that is to the next level of your life, you cannot go wrong. And that it's not about reaching a destination, it's not about a thing, it's about just keep putting one step in front of the other and moving forward every single moment. So wow.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you for today. This was a good show.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, I hope people out there take away um more of this. Maybe I'll shoot out a live video later kind of explaining a little bit more about failing, in my opinion. But listen, we're almost out of time. Man, what a great show. Teresa, you've got some great classes that we're going to be having up soon on Aspire. We'll be giving more information about that soon. Additionally, we want to thank you for being here. Please feel free to join us on our mailing list, which you can, join using our QRC code, or you can go to soulivity.com for more information. Again, thanks for being here, and thanks for joining us for another episode of This Morning with Soulivity. Again, we hope that you come back and join us every weekday, Monday through Friday, right here at soulivity.com or on our social media platforms. Or you can listen Thursdays and Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific on KMET 1490 AM for all of you out on the West Coast. Well, until next time, keep having real conversations that empower with passion and purpose and create that life full of high quality living today. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.